Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in the gang from Glass Artery. How are you guys doing?
Good, thanks. Hope everyone's doing good. Hope everyone's staying safe.
Yeah, doing pretty, trying to, keep it together under everything that's going on. It's the 26th of October? And just
27th.
everything. 27th of October.
No one knows what day it is
I don't know what day
anymore.
exactly. Nobody knows what day it is anymore, and everything is changing. And in 1 week, we will have possibly the same or different president. So everything's up in the air.
Right on. And it could be the 27th of October or the 500th of January. We don't know. And it's all jokes aside, it has been a tough year. I'm really thankful for anyone who, because of the COVID or the unrest or protests or anything that put their music career on hold or delayed their album. I'm cool with that. People, I'm always like self-care, family, security first, and then everything else. But anybody who has put out music, I'm really grateful that we still have something to talk about, because as we said right before we started recording, literally the whole year has been punted by life, and no shows. We're all music fans here. Things are upside down for the whole music world. So thank you for putting your record out in June, self-titled Glass Artery album. And you guys have a lot of stuff going on, so I'm really keen to sort of unpack. My favorite word of 2020 is unpack, beside unprecedented and other unwords. So I'm really glad to get to know you guys and hear your story. Anybody who's into this style of music should check it out. It's like I hear a lot of post rock. I hear a lot of progressive metal, even some other things that I wasn't expecting. And rather than just compare you guys to a slew of bands, because I don't love to do the for fans of, I think it's almost limiting. Sometimes you have to, because some bands are way out there and you have to just it's kind of like this. Like, how would you describe Thank You Scientist without genres? It would be hard. Or it would be, or Covet, right? It was a great band that I love recently, and you couldn't put one genre on them. And I think you guys fall into some of that, but not totally. So let's hear about how you guys came together, and then we'll unpack this record a little bit.
So actually, I had met Amanda at a Gojira show through my friend Jackie, and Amanda and I became good friends. And Amanda and I wanted to start a band, and she played the drums, I played the bass, and we needed a guitarist. And she told me that she had met someone at a show that was into the same kind of music I liked, and it ended up being John.
Yeah, to further that, so Amanda met me at a show at Gramercy Theater in New York City. Shouldn't probably use that in case somebody from somewhere else other than New York sees this. But yeah, at Gramercy Theater, where Allison actually worked at the time, I was waiting in line. I was chatting with her, and Amanda was like, "Are you two together?" And then we just started talking and became friends. And long story short, she said, "Oh, this guy wants to make music, and he likes post metal and prog metal." And I'm like, "Okay, cool." And then Syed knows Harold, who you know from FOTA, and then it just turned into like a band, and we didn't know what direction we were going to go, but things changed a lot over the past few years, and it kind of like led it to the direction of where it went. And I think that everything thus far that's come out has been some type of personal triumph, I guess.
I like that PMA, and shout out to my dear friend Amanda Saya, who helped put you guys together. That's amazing, and she'll probably be watching this, I'm sure. And she's awesome. I can't say enough awesome things about her. But yeah, that's awesome, and that's how most bands start, right? You like a certain genre, I like a genre. Where's the Venn diagram of how we collaborate? So if you had to throw a blanket over the bands that you guys have either in common or that you just like in general, that you draw inspiration from, let's hear like a little bullet point list of those bands.
The first band that came to mind that I discussed was Cult of Luna, which I don't think you had heard of, John, right? Initially? Or you didn't really listen to them too much?
I listened to them, but it wasn't as deeply as you knew them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Cult of Luna definitely is topping the charts. Another band that Syed had actually introduced me to was Rosetta, out of Philly. And they're like easily one of my favorite post-metal bands. Obviously, like other big post-metal names, Isis, Pelican, Caspian. Other than that, look, I love prog metal. You know, I've been a big time fan of Devin Townsend. I've been a big time fan of even lesser, well, they're still huge, but like Circa Survive is a really big influence of mine. And I know it's a little weird to hear that because you're like, this dude's screaming on this record. How does he like Circa Survive? But the reality is I like the I guess the cataclysm of the heaviness and the softness of it. Because even though Anthony from Circa Survive may not scream and do like the raspy fry vocals or anything like that, but he puts so much energy and passion in the music that he makes. And that's what I really love about them.
No, they're awesome. I'm a fan too. And yeah, we don't all, it's not have to be all brutal all the time. Life is not all brutal all the time. It's all shades and all things. And yeah, I was going to say also, I love Rosetta. I also hear like bits of like Intronaut in there a little bit. And another band that's sort of not so post metal, but more post rock, which is Junius, which is a band I keep coming back to. They're not that active right now, I think, but they were a band like 4 or 5 years ago. They were like major for me, and similar to Rosetta and Pelican in that vein, like a little occasionally really heavy, but also very drony and dreamy and very melodic, which I like. I like that you guys have the heaviness, but also really careful and thoughtful about composition and melody and stuff, which vocals, guitars, everything. Good job.
Thank you. It's really big for me to hear that, especially because like I did a DIY for this whole project pretty much. Like everything that you hear on that album was mixed, it was edited by me, it was recorded by me in terms of like the tracking. I didn't record the drums, that was somebody else. Syed did some of the bass, I did the other portions of the bass. And I did all the guitars and all the vocals except for the ones that she sang, of course. So it's been a huge journey that I never thought I would go under in terms of doing like a full production album. And after I did it, I felt so accomplished that I actually started a business surrounding it in New York. So I own a business in New York now for music production.
Awesome. We'll make sure to get links and everything and plug everything. We'll message each other offline, and we'll make sure to hit people to you right away.
Oh wow, thank you.
Yeah, of course. That's what we do here. That's what we do. We champion everybody. Ali, I wanna ask you a few questions. So I don't know, were you already a singer? Would you have aspirations of being in this kind of band? It sounds like you guys just kind of fell together, everybody.
So the way that it worked out was that that particular song was focused on my experience, and more or less the reason why the band went in the direction that it did is because I unfortunately was a victim of DV. So the album is surrounded around that, and how, particularly with the song Stained Glass that I sing on, is how our perceptions are colored by other people.
Right on. Thank you for sharing that. Really sorry to hear that, but at least you can get something positive and make some art out of life. That's what I always say is like all the suffering it can lead to some positive things like art and music and things. But yeah, I'm really kind of, whether it's surrounding music or the result of music, I'm really kind of hit my zenith with tolerance of abusers and assholes and racists and misogynists and every wrong ist and ism in the world. I'm just tired and I'm done. And I asked this question. I interviewed. I don't know if you guys are fans of the British death metal band Venom Prison, but I interviewed Larissa, the singer, and she also has a similar story. And I said, like, what can we do as a community beyond outing shithead abusers and these toxic fucking people? What can we do to support? Because like there's a whole, like heavy music is extremely white male dominated. It just happens to be. I don't think it's on purpose. It's just the history of this music has, it's certainly plenty of people of color, women, everybody is welcome. I always feel like heavy music needs to be a safe space by design. But I said to her, and I'll ask you guys, like, what can we do? What can journalists do? What can scene people do to support you and support, just like, can we help uplift you and stomp these motherfuckers out? What can we do?
I feel like part of the problem is that even though the space is welcoming, there are a lot of gatekeepers, particularly for women and then women of color. Like even when I would go to a show, it's just like, oh, if there's 10 women there, there's only 2 other women that look like me, and that's it. So I would say definitely try to support as many people as you can. I mean, interview female fronted bands that have women of color and just amplify their voices as best as you can.
Awesome. I'm definitely the guy. I've had arguments about female fronted as a terminology because I also do a little bit of music. I mentioned that I do music marketing. I also do a little bit of music PR for bands. And I never, just in general, I've worked with, I just recently wrapped a campaign. It's probably a band you guys would like. They're a little different and definitely avant-garde and genre chameleon type, led by a fabulous woman singer. But I tend to like push my journalistic brethren and sisters to like not say female fronted, but I'm cool that you're cool with that. And not because it's, it is what it is. It could be anybody. I feel like what are all the male fronted bands? Oh, everybody else, of course. So, I try to downplay that when I can, but you're absolutely right. Like we need to just be as diverse with our coverage as we possibly can. I try to, at least with this little platform, say and do those things. And I try to push my peers in that direction too. So I appreciate you sharing that story. And I'll also say like, if I called it, this is going back quite a ways, but I said, I do a lot of reviews, right? And I said, the most important book ever written about metal is Lena Dawes's book, What Are You Doing Here? Which is her sort of half memoir, half sort of sociological examination of people of color, women of color in heavy metal. And I will never stop plugging her or that book as long as I live. Because it definitely opened my eyes, and not that I'm definitely not one of those people, but until you hear it from somebody else's point of view, you don't know, right?
I just don't want to feel like a rarity. Like we do exist, we're there. It's just that I just want to feel like everybody else does and not feel like an exception.
Right on. And then so that's amazing, and how your story and your song was the catalyst for this project. That's fantastic and positive. So that's good. Thank you for, again, it's tough to be vulnerable for anybody in this day and age, especially with media, and it's really tough to put yourself out there. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you. Thank you. So I love the DIY mentioned there before, John, and we're all about the, as much as there's a whole ecosystem of giant bands and huge record labels and Spotify and all this giant corporate shit. I love DIY stuff all day long, forever. I started in the DIY scene myself before there was an internet. We barely had email. I wish we had MySpace even back when I was in bands. But it's really interesting in this day and age. I wanted to ask you about Bandcamp, because I love you guys have your Bandcamp is fantastic, set up great, and really have enjoyed jamming out the record there. And it really is like a really great platform. And I wanted to kind of ask your opinions about streaming and Bandcamp in particular, since you guys are heavily there.
Okay, like most people in pretty much in all of music, okay? Like most people, I think we all pretty much sit on the sideline of something has to be done with regards to the streaming platform so that bands can actually make money. And it's so unbelievably hard. There's so many hurdles to jump over, whether it's the royalties or the minuscule royalties, like tiny little minuscule royalties of streaming platforms like Spotify or Deezer or Google or Amazon or whoever you're on, which this album happens to be on all of them because I used a distributor to do that. But that's only because I wanted more exposure, so I can get paid in exposure bucks, basically. and that's basically the biggest qualm I have with that approach, is that there's a huge problem surrounding the ecosystem of money with bands, especially metal bands. Like maybe if you're, a pop rock band, you could sell your album at shows or online. Maybe somebody might buy it on iTunes or whatever. But like post metal and post rock, it's number one, it's already a pretty niche genre, right? There's already not a lot of bands in it, and it's not something that people are going to necessarily gravitate towards. So you're not going to have a big pool of people to buy your album already. Then you throw in the monkey wrench of we don't want to pay for your album because bands like Pelican, bands like ISIS, bands like Cult of Luna are on Spotify. So why aren't you on Spotify? And I have to kind of sit back and humble myself and say, you know what? You're right. I'm not bigger than those bands. Why is it that I would expect that I could ever just use Bandcamp? I love Bandcamp because it allows me to potentially make money on my music. And I love it also as a platform because it pushes their listeners more so to listen to things within their genre. Like the Discover Weekly algorithm on Spotify is not great. I've tried to listen to stuff on there. I'm like, this is not really showing me any underground bands. I know all these bands. It's never pushing those like, oh, this is a really interesting band with less than 1,000 listens on it. It never does that. It's always some huge band like Boris or something like that that comes up. And it's like, well, I already know them. I don't need to listen to them again. So, yeah, but to digress and to make it more succinct, I think it's a necessary evil to have those streaming platforms. But if you really appreciate and enjoy the band, throw them a donation or a purchase on Bandcamp. And I am working on, and maybe this should be for later, but I am working on physical merch since I know that's what people like to buy. So I'm working on that. But for the time being, I ask people to either donate money to us or to purchase the album.
Right on. I do. I don't expect Spotify or a similar. Obviously, certain platforms are a little more underground than others, and a little more geared to the underground than others. I'm really surprised that SoundCloud hasn't kind of either been sucked up by some other entity or morphed into something a little more palpable for everybody, considering how many DJs and dance music and rappers are on SoundCloud. Like that, they don't have a monetization kind of arm for their artists kind of surprises me. But I don't expect Spotify to change, but I would, not to go on a wild tangent about this topic, but I would say like it is great for attention. It is a necessary evil. I totally agree with you. But Bandcamp has been killing it and really supporting bands as well as anybody could be. It's great. If we didn't have Bandcamp, imagine what it would be like. We'd be back to like Reverb Nation or something else. I don't know. Like, oh God, right? I definitely want to touch on this. You guys are doing a live stream in a couple of weeks. It's charity based, which I absolutely love. It is benefiting a charity I personally care about. So I want to hear from you guys a little bit about that event and how people can contribute and get involved.
In relation to the album, perpetually, this is not just one time, this is forever. The album, the eponymous album, Glass Artery, 50% of all the money I make from it will always go to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It's not just this one time, it's forever, it's perpetual. If you listen to this live stream and you say, I really like this music, or I like this band, or I like their vision, or whatever it is that you like about it, please consider purchasing the album, because 50% of that money is going straight to the National Domestic Violence Hotline. And really what it comes down to of why I chose that in the first place was it helped Allison grow the courage to step away from what was going on in her life when she was going through it. And not to mention a lot of this music that came out of this, I mean, it does touch on domestic violence. It touches on esoteric things too, and like philosophical things lyrically, but all of it kind of was like, I was inspired at the time because of what was going on with her and the fact that I felt isolated about all of it myself, about what was going on with her. And I felt if I'm gonna make this music and like, maybe for lack of a better word, extort my pain about domestic violence as a cis white male who I've been in abusive relationships myself, well, at least one, but not to the degree of what was going on with her, and not to the degree of what happens to 1 in 3 women in this country. And it's hugely underrated of a problem that people don't talk about it enough, and that there isn't more resources like the National Domestic Violence Hotline. I mean, people have to do things like call 911 and say, I want to order a large cheese pizza. That's a true story. She called 911, pretended to order a pizza. And that's how she got help for a domestic violence situation. And that's the kind of situation that we're in right now in terms of having resources to help people in those predicaments.
And in this day and age, and especially in this year where everybody is earning capacity is diminished greatly, this is a very bold step for the band, and I really applaud you, all of you. And you know, it's needed. We need more charity-minded things, from the biggest bands in the world to everybody. You know, we can all spare something, unless you absolutely can't, but most people can. And you know, more bands need to follow your example. And it's a great cause. I've done some volunteering on hotlines, although obviously women in peril don't want to talk to a white older man, but you can help when you can, whether it's financial or volunteer time, or, you know, create resources with whatever you can. So you know, props to you guys. And so this is also tied into your live stream that's coming up. So let's talk about the particulars of that, because a lot of bands are approaching live streaming there. It's because of the technology, and in your case, the distance of the band. Everybody's approaching it vastly different, right?
Yeah, so it's been kind of an undertaking. We had to try and figure out where we were going to do it, how we were going to do it. Things changed, but ultimately what we landed on was Kevin Entrezian, from formerly the guitarist of the Dillinger Escape Plan, has a studio in New Jersey called Backroom Studios, and he's doing live streams at what I would deem to be a nominal rate, because, and I asked him this question when I spoke with him, because he wants to help bands. And I'm like, that is a noble cause, and I will take 100% advantage of you trying to help me as a band, especially an unknown band, because other bands like High on Fire or Mr. Bungle is doing a live stream this on Halloween on Saturday. So like huge bands are doing huge productions, and that's amazing. But it's really hard when you're not Mr. Bungle. So, you know, it's really hard, in my opinion, to make any money doing any of this. And people want to see live shows, right? They, you know, everybody craves it now. It's like in March when everything hit the fan, they're like, oh, it'll be okay by the summer, right? Now summer's come and gone. It's like, so next year, right? and nobody knows. And I think the closest thing we have to a live show at this point is live streams, platforms like Twitch and YouTube and Facebook, although I don't know what's going on with them in terms of live streams. After I read some of their changes in their policies, we ultimately went with YouTube because we felt like it was the most open-minded, I guess, for lack of a better word. Kevin is helping us out. So, I mean, it's coming up pretty soon on the 8th of November. So only one week from this Sunday.
Right on. We'll definitely get the word out about that this week, and of course with this interview. So I'm really, you know, we'll link Kevin, we'll link everybody, all the things, especially where people can donate and volunteer if they can. But yeah, anything people can give is so needed for something like this. You know, you put the record out in June and there's no shows to really do except this live stream, and there's, you know, it's hard to do stuff. And you said you got merches in the works. What have you guys been doing to just kind of keep yourself nimble musically or just mentally? Any hobbies you picked up, or just what are you doing to keep making music? What are you guys working on in this time?
Other than, you know, this album, which was a huge undertaking, I've been working on new music for Glass Artery that Syed is privy to and the other band members are privy to. That's going to come out hopefully middle of next year. And it's kind of surrounding what's going on right now. Not a quarantine album. I want to just go ahead and say that right now. It's not a quarantine album, but it is related to the state of the world, and, you know, with things like the wildfires, COVID, the elections, and everything surrounding that, and just the feeling of like what's happening, like every civil unrest, just everything, like what's happening. Like we all feel like this existential dread that comes along with all of these problems that we face. And, you know, I feel like it was the right time to write something about this. Other than music, I mean, we've been trying to work out again. So that's a good hobby, and it's a cathartic feeling, I would say, right? To work out and try and exercise and exert your energy, so mad about everything. We're just gonna lift this weight.
Trying to take walks, trying not to regain the quarantine 14.
I think I've got a quarantine 44 happening here. I don't know. I wish it was only 14. Maybe it's 24, but geez, good for you guys. Yeah, it's just been hard, and I know that I totally feel you. I feel like we're all feeling like a collective dread. The whole culture, maybe a lot of people who were very apathetic are now also finally feeling like, I don't know, oddly connected in a way they never did before. And you feel like, oh, everyone is feeling it. It's not just me, it's everybody. That's why the jokes are landing. And, tragedy plus time equals comedy. So we're all trying to schadenfreude our way through this thing. I applaud you guys for just keeping your heads up and grinding away. I'm sure, I don't know if, Syed has anything to add there, but, I'm certainly down to hear from, like, if you guys have picked up a good book or heard any good albums or, heard any good podcasts we should be checking out that you like that maybe you can help share. We're all just trying to spread that light around a little bit, right?
What have I been doing? I'm playing a lot of video games, honestly.
Cool.
I got into No Man's Sky, which has been a huge time sink. But besides that, I have a small little project I'm doing with a friend musically. It's mostly a shit post. We just sample noises we make and stuff. And I don't think it's ever going to see light of day, but it's been nice because he and I have always discussed making music, and we never really got the chance until COVID happened because he lives close by, and we're like, you're the only person I can see because you live 5 minutes away. And that's all we've been doing.
Anything you can do to be productive. And if anybody's depressed or whatever, has been sick, bed is fine too. Whatever works. Whatever we can all do to make it through this until it's over, whenever that'll be. And
I think that's the hardest part, is not knowing when it's over. If it ever will be at this point.
Right. I hope so.
I mean, do have 2 books to plug, although neither of them are very fun or light. I do think that they're escapism, though, or well, kind of not escapism. One's a reality check, and the other one is escapism. The first book is Permanent Record by Edward Snowden, and I think it was already released quite a while ago now, but great book about how the government more or less spies on us. And I mean, I work in IT, so that's really what I do for a living. And it's very interesting to me from a technical perspective to read what he said. And also House of Leaves by Daniel, I'm not going to say his last name because I'm going to mess it up. Daniel Z. I'll say that. I don't know if you ever read that book, but it is a trip. And every time I pick it up, I'm like, what? Like, it's like a masterpiece, like Bjork level masterpiece of book. That's what it feels like reading a Bjork album, basically.
Wow.
Because there's so many layers and so deep.
That would be a great review on Amazon.
Bjork level.
Bjork level book. I have not read that book, but I've had a few people rave about it to me, so my interest is piqued. Just like all of us, when the COVID hit and we realized it wasn't going to end anytime soon, everybody made their plans. I'm going to read a book a week, and I'm going to work out every day, and I'm going to get that beach body, even though there's no beach to go to. And I definitely did not read all the books or, do all the things. We want to do all the things. And I think some of us just bake banana bread and shit posted memes to get away from what we tried to do.
Hey, it's cathartic. Banana bread and shit posting.
That's it. That's what we need to do. Listen, thank you guys. I'm going to urge everybody to check out this record and support these causes, and check out your live stream, and shout out to you guys. Shout out to Harold, who is not here. Shout out to Kevin for what he's doing for the community. He doesn't have to. He's a star, and he was in a huge band and will do whatever he wants to in the music world. And he's choosing to do something really kind and generous and thoughtful and for the scene, which is, again, that DIY spirit. It doesn't matter how big bands get, you can still be who you always were all the way and not lose yourself, which is refreshing as I get to be an older guy and I look back on the many years and many scenes and bands that I've been around. So thank you guys for sharing your story with us. Again, I cannot wait to help promote you. Self-titled album came out in June. Please get it on Bandcamp. And we'll plug all the things, like I said, and hello to the bird again. And bird songs. all kinds of fun stuff. Thank you so much for hanging out with Ghost Cult. I appreciate y'all, and be safe out there and take care.
Thank you.
Thank
You too.
Thank
Thanks so much,
you.
Chief.